Hello, and we are live. Welcome to the Parent Summit Africa Conversation 2022. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who is excited? We just finished our first session and we're heading into the second section, and it's going to be hotter than hotter than fire. So we're talking about having the sex conversation with your children. Basically, the idea is to build a family system where your children are not prone to molestation, to abuse, to raise children who are aware of themselves, who have the right knowledge, the right information to protect themselves from predators, to make the right sex decisions per time, right? So that's what this conversation is about. And our guest speaker and resource person is no other than Irene Bangwell. If you know Irene, you know that she is hot when it comes to having the sex conversation with your children, right? So that's what this session is about. You don't want to miss it. You want to share this live stream. If you have friends, you want to invite them for this conversation. So before we dive right into it, what's Parent Summit Africa Conversation about? Parent Summit Africa is an annual event. We used to have it as an annual event powered by the Vivian Okoye Parenting Academy, right? Where we gather parents from all over the world, all over the nation, to come and have relevant conversation around parenting, around raising children, and how it shapes and affects our nation at large. But this year we decided that we should have these conversations more often, and we are starting with this particular conversation. And I'm super excited that you're on this journey with us, and you're going to enjoy every bit of it. You're going to learn, because I believe that if we're able to get it right with ourselves, with our families, and in raising our children, then we have hope that we can build the society that we want to see. In a short while, I'm going to welcome Irene Bangwell, who is a Raising Girls coach, a sex education expert, and an educator par excellence. She'll be our instructor for this particular session. Stay tuned, listen, and like we did in the first session, after her session, we'll have our question and answer session. Please stay put till the end of this conversation. And before I leave you, I'd like to mention that this particular conversation is supported by the Bunker Abuja. That's actually where I'm shooting from, a beautiful space in the city of Abuja, a co-working space where you can go for all your working needs, your working space, your offices, your conference rooms, your private offices and co-working spaces. If you're ever looking for a space to work, to meet with your clients, then the Bunker Abuja is the place for you. And we are grateful for them. We are grateful to them for sponsoring this event. So thank you, and I welcome Irene Bangwell to the broadcast. Please give her a round of applause in the comment section. Welcome, Irene.
Hey sis,
Welcome.
good evening, good
Thank you
evening,
so
good
much.
evening.
Thank you. So I'll
It's so
leave
joy.
you, and if you see my face again, just know that I'm coming with questions, right? So,
Okay,
so do
okay,
your
okay,
thing, and yeah,
okay.
thank you so much.
All right, darling. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Parent Summit Africa Conversations. So we've been begging Vivian Okoye to make sure that we are gathering and talking about different parenting issues before the main conference that usually holds in October. And so I'm so honored to be a part of today's conversation. And the conversation that we're having on my session today, it's about how to abuse-proof our homes. So how to abuse-proof our homes. So if you can hear me, I want you to type that in the comments, how to abuse-proof your home. I want to see that in the comments, yeah? So leave me a comment, how to abuse-proof our homes. What does that mean? It's just a simple way of saying that, how do you run a home where it is next to impossible for your child to be abused or molested? How do you run a home where your child is not exposed to those kinds of risk? So before I begin, I want to start by talking about the whole idea of parenting. You know, when Vivian released the theme of this event, talking about building stronger families, stronger homes, stronger families, better humans, changing the world, it really struck me because one of the first things I wanted to talk about on tonight's session was to remind us that parenting is trust. Parenting is trust because God literally gives you another human being's life and and is trusting that you'll ensure that they have the right building blocks to build their future. And many of us may not realize that where we are today, in many ways, is a product of our childhood. Childhood experiences form the foundation for how we perceive the world, whether we'll go out there to be everything God designed for us to be, whether we'll be easily intimidated. It all comes from our childhood. And one of the things that can alter a person's life is if they are exposed to sexual abuse. Yeah? It can change the frame of a person's life. They can take two extremes entirely. Some can have hypersexual appetite that makes them do anything with anyone, run the risk of getting STDs and all kinds of things. People will go out there and have multiple sex partners, and they're not thinking about a lot about consequences. Many times they are like that because somebody abused them and they didn't see justice happen to the person. You know, sometimes in our family circles, when there's abuse, as painful as abuse is, we will say we are settling it. We say, oh yeah, apologize, oh yeah, apologize. And that doesn't do justice. So some people get abused as kids and it shapes the rest of their life. Some other people withdraw completely. I remember watching this show some years back where a woman was having a problem with her twins. And these twins were teenagers at the time. One had declared that she was a lesbian, and the other had multiple sexual partners. She was all over the place. And so I remember I think it was Trish or so. She called the mother and said, "What happened to your babies? One is running away from sex, the other is tearing herself apart." In the end, we found out that their mother's boyfriend was molesting one of them. And so you see the two extremes that life can go when kids are abused or exposed to anything that can lead to a trauma. Sweetheart, so my baby has been sleeping and just walked into the scenario. Don't worry. No, you're not coming into the screen, darling. Thank you so much. I love you. I'll come to you after the session. So let's go back, my people. It comes with the terrain. That's what is giving me internet, okay? You can't use it for now. Sorry for that. That's what comes with the terrain when you're not joining from bunker. If I was at the bunker right now, nobody will come and ask me for whether they could use my phone. You get the gist, all right? So what was I saying? We watched the show, two teenage girls, rebellious sexually. One has declared she's a lesbian, and the other is hypersexual. And so the whole thing was that their mother's boyfriend had been molesting them. I was saying all of that to say that if you do not abuse-proof your home, you will never know your children's potential. Because the trauma tears at the heart of who they are, disrupts everything that God designed for them to be. So that's why this session is critical. So what does it mean to abuse-proof our home? Is to put every system in place to ensure that it is not easy for our children to be abused. So I'm going to talk about three things very quickly. I'll say it again. Abuse-proofing means there's the right structure that makes it next to impossible for our children to be abused. Number one, the number one reason why children get abused is that they're ignorant. They don't even know it is abused. It is abused when it happens. That's number one. So that means that someone can be living in the same house, touching a child. So let me use a simple term. Let's say your younger brother or younger sister, your favorite younger sister, comes to the house, you love them dearly, they're your 5 and 6, they give you so much joy. Then they start to touch your children inappropriately. Did you know children usually have extra empathy in such a way that they don't want to disrupt that relationship you have? So they allow the abuse, is eating at them, but they put you first. They put your relationship with that person first, even at their own detriment. So the first reason why abuse happens in different homes is that children don't know it is abuse and children don't know how to handle it. Number two, the reason why abuse happens in different homes is that parents are too busy to observe. Parents are too busy to observe. A few weeks ago, a video of a school went viral that was very disturbing. And the only thing I could say was, you should know when your daughter's body language has changed or your son's body language has changed when they started engaging in sexual activities. The way they talk is different. They become mouthy. They just change. Something happens. They start to talk to adults as if they are their mates. So if you're a parent and you're not present enough to observe, you won't even know when it has happened. And unfortunately, it doesn't always come like a strike, then the abuse. Children get lured. What that means is that if you're a present parent and you're observant, you'll be able to interrupt. I need Duncan. You'll be able to interrupt before somebody actually carries out abuse. So that's the second reason. We're too busy, we are not observant. Sometimes we have people doing different things. So after school for your toddler, the nanny is washing, bathing them. I remember when my kids were much younger, I made sure that I had to bathe them every evening. It was a way of catching up. It wasn't just about checking whether something had happened to their body. It was a way of sitting down with them and talking through how their day went. And you hear this one said this, and you hear that one said this. It was one of those days, one of my daughters, she was 3. She said, "Mommy, do we have sex in this house?" And I said, "Where did you hear from?" She said, "Oh, my friend said that they have sex in the house." I said, "Oh, no, we've not yet bought it." Because I figured that the context she knew it was not the context that it was. It took having that conversation. And so by the time I answered her like that, the story was over. There was nothing to take back to the friend and go and build up on a conversation that would otherwise become a problem. So we have to be present to observe when changes have begun. We have to be present to see what is going on. So that's the second factor. The first factor, remember I said that children are ignorant. They don't know that it is abuse. They don't know what it looks like. They don't even know what to do when it happens. They're not sure whether they'll be hurting someone or disrespecting someone if they speak up. And then number 2, we are not present to observe. And then number 3, we're not talking. I mean, the average parent believes that their child knows what to do. Just like when we're growing up, our parents gave us all those one-liners. If a boy touches you, you'll be pregnant. Their brother is touching him, teacher is touching, dad is touching. Nobody got pregnant. So it starts to get confusing. So parents are not talking. You gather parents, you say, go and talk to your kids. Parents can say, don't even try me. These children, we make all kinds of excuses. We say, they already know now. They already know. Children of nowadays, they know so much. Let me bust your bubble. Children don't know so much. Children have bits and pieces of information. Hey, darling, welcome. Children have bits and pieces of information that is not always accurate. And normally they get this information from their friends. So there's misinformation, half-baked meat. There's a lot of mixed mash of all kinds of things. And so just because they throw certain terminologies at you, it doesn't mean they know anything. It doesn't mean they know anything. It is still your responsibility as a parent to put your children on the street on what is accurate information and then how to think about the information that is in front of them. But I don't blame parents. I know that many times parents' biggest fear is saying what is inappropriate. Some parents feel like, what if I go and say something and they start to get curious in the wrong direction? What if I say that thing and she refuses to open up? So we don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. We don't know at what age to say what. And so today I want to show you the basics about providing sex education. So I've said 3 factors that make abuse easily happen in different homes. Let me throw in another one. Abuse easily happens in homes where there are no standards as well. Yeah, the Holy Spirit just helped me to remember that one. Yeah. The fourth point, abuse happens in homes where there are no standards. Any TV show is fine. Any music is fine. Children can pick adults' phone and do anyhow. There are no boundaries, no right and wrong. Permissive culture. A cousin can come to stay in the house and bring his girlfriend to sleep over. The kids are watching. The maid, everybody's doing anyhow. So when there are no standards, the Bible says that the enemy comes like a flood. So the enemy does not want standards. So he comes and does anyhow. But the Bible says that God raises a standard. So when there's a standard, we start to filter. For example, when there's a standard where certain TV shows cannot be aired, and we're working by age appropriateness of shows, then it means that certain content will not be accessible to children. Because it's not accessible to them, there's no opportunity to meditate on what they watch. There's no opportunity for them to experiment on what they've seen. And so it reduces the incidence of drama around sexual issues. So hold those four things and then let me come back to the number one thing I know that if you could do out of these four, you're well on your way. All right. So number one is you have to have sex conversations in your home. But you normally make the mistake of thinking that sex education is intercourse education, and it isn't. Yeah, at least according to Professor Irene Bangwell, is not intercourse education. So I remember that the first time I saw the word sex, it was on a form. It had to do with gender, right? So my definition of sex education is that you're teaching your child how to live in the sex that they came in the gender they came in. So if you have a boy, sex education is how you teach your boys how to maximize the gender they came in. This is the body God designed for you to come in. These are the things that is going to happen to this body physically. These are the mistakes that you're susceptible to make. This is how you should protect yourself, right? These are things you should know. These are things you should do. These are things you should never consider doing because these are the consequences. So sex education is how I pick my child, regardless of gender, and start to prepare them for the different things, challenges, changes that lie ahead of them. So let's say I have a boy and he's 6 to 8 years old. Sex education for him is going to be the things that are peculiar to 6 to 8 year old boys. What are things that 6 to 8 year old boys have the tendency to do when it comes to do with their body, right? They become curious. They may want to lift up a girl's skirt to see how her private body area is. They may want to touch their own private body area. So sex education is teaching them, no, you don't do that. It's teaching them the boundaries, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. You get the idea? So you need to first and foremost tell yourself, sex education is not intercourse education. Sex education is really about teaching your children body safety and body honor. You see those two principles: body safety, protect yourself from abuse; body honor, that things you shouldn't do to your body. You get the idea? Those two combos, body safety, body honor, that's what makes any child body smart. You know about being body safe, ensuring that people don't come at them and abuse them. But body honor also means that when they get to a stage where they have to make decisions about what to do with their body, they still honor their body, they still seek their own self-preservation. So having said all of those grammar, I'm going to give you 8 by 8 sex education, what it looks like. So number one, let's say you have a 3 to 5 year old. Your 3 to 5 year old is in a phase where they are most likely to be abused. They are most likely to touch others. They are most likely to be touched. They are most likely to touch other people. So I have categorized their sex education and I call it the 3 Ps, meaning people, parts, and places. What does people mean? Let me start with parts. I always like to start with parts. Parts means that we name every part of the body, every single part of the body, by their right names. There's nothing like wee wee, it's a penis, or it's a vulva, or it's vagina, or it's anus. We normalize calling these body parts by their names. And so our children get to know these body parts by their names. Why are we teaching them the parts? So that they know which part is private, which part nobody should touch, which part they too shouldn't touch other people. Sometimes we focus a lot on don't let people touch you, whereas our children sometimes go out of their way to touch other people. Now, when they start to touch other people, that opens the door for all kinds of abuse. And just so you know, abuse is not always with an adult. It can also be with another minor. All right? So that's for parts. But when it comes to people, that's when we start to talk about what is allowable and what is not allowable. For example, you have a 3 to 5 year old. They may not be able to bathe themselves just yet, but they need to know that if the caregiver or anybody bathing them spends too long a time between their penis, vagina, vulva, anus, spends too long a time, they should say stop. You get the idea? You also start to teach them things like there are no exceptions. If someone does this, it's abuse. If somebody does that, it's abuse. We don't tolerate that. And so that's it. on people. And then we try to let them know that there are no exemptions. There are no exemptions, no exemptions. There are no exemptions at all. There are no exemptions. Not the bishop, not the grandparent, not nobody should touch your private body area. But along with that, we also teach life skills like bathing and washing yourself properly by yourself, because those are usually the opportunities that, you understand me, that make people touch them there in the with all the legitimacy and everything. Meanwhile, it could be something else. Then we start to teach them something I like to call response. How do they respond when something goes wrong? What if this happens? What should they do? What if that happens? What should they do? So I remember one time I was going through, I was some years back, I read this material where the lady said that whenever someone is trying to abuse you, instead of shouting help, that you should say fire. So the whole idea is this, that when you shout help, other people may feel that whatever is harming you could harm them. They may not feel up to it, that they may be able to stand up to whatever issue is standing in front of you. So they will decide to run away. So in America, that lady said you should yell fire. But a Nigerian mom told me to shout thief. He said, tell them to shout thief, thief, thief. That Nigerians have a gravitation towards going to disempower a thief. So that's response. Number two, you can tell them, oh, if you're in church, and so for instance, we have in church, you have family friends, and someone just walks into children's church and wants to go out with one of your children. They should know how to say, no, let mommy come and pick me up. You get the idea? It doesn't matter how close anyone is, they must never be able to access your children without your presence. No, not allowed. Nobody should feel so free they can walk into your children's school or children's church or where your kids are hanging out and take them and go away with them. They must also learn about two kinds of people. Every family has two kinds of people. They are not always bad people, but people we need to be aware of. You always have the relative or uncle or auntie that is very strict. If mommy says bedtime is 7 p.m., they insist that bedtime is 7 p.m. and they ensure that the children go to bed by 7. But then you have the other ones that say, mommy said by 7, don't worry, stay till 9, let's watch something. You start to prepare your children against those kinds of people. Those people that don't honor standards. Many times they don't need to be abusive, but they can open your children up to rebellion. They can open up your children to all kinds of things. I mean, I've seen situations where a teenager went to ask an uncle what something means. He said, "I'll show you. I'll bring you. I'll bring somebody that will show you how to handle this." So you prepare your kids for those kinds of situations. And so when they're 3 to 5, you prepare them for all the come and sit on my lap. Come, let me carry you. You're my baby. You're my favorite cousin in the house. You're my favorite niece. You're my favorite baby. You start to prepare your children. That all falls under people. And then finally, we talk to them about places. So places is about everywhere 3 to 5-year-olds go and how they can be careful as they go to those places. So let's say in school. Let me see. I think I got. All right, so let's say in school, you start to tell them what they shouldn't do, where they shouldn't go in school. For one, you tell them you don't go to the toilet with another classmate in school. That's places. Number two, if you're playing on the playground, make sure you're playing where teachers can see you. Now, my children would normally ask me, why is it important for me to play on the playground where a teacher can see you? I say something could harm you. A swing could go out of place and want to fall. I always start from there, all right? And somebody could may want to touch you inappropriately. If you're out in the open, they won't come to touch you, They won't come to touch you. So the whole idea is to help our children to avoid being isolated, all right? To avoid being isolated. So for example, another scenario for places is where children feel that it is a privilege for a certain adult to call them. You need to deal with the mindset. So I think this is also coming from my own personal experience. I think I was about 9 years old or so. Yeah. I was writing common entrance. And my music teacher at the time, he had this concert he used to do in Calaban. So many schools were rehearsing to be in if you were selected in your school, it was like you had made it in life. And so I'm done with my exams that day, and he sends for me to his office alone. Intelligence academically, but nobody smart. Just type that one for me. A child can be academically intelligent, but not body smart. And being body smart means they are not well acquainted about body safety. They're not well acquainted about body honor. Long story cut short, I showed up in his office. He locked the door. I saw him lock the door. It didn't occur to me that something was wrong with that move for me to even scream. Yeah? And before I knew it, this man put his hand in my vagina. I was 9, right? And then, fortunately for me, by the help of God that day, the security man in the school came around. I think he was doing a tour, came and knocked on his door. And so when he knocked and the man opened the door to go and see him, I came out and ran home. I never told my mom until like 3-4 years ago. Because when children don't know what abuse is, they blame themselves when something goes wrong. They think that they are in trouble done to them. So they don't know who to speak up to. So those are all places things. I don't tell a child when somebody locks the door, shout. I say, don't follow anybody alone anywhere. Even if it's to buy stuff. Don't follow anybody anywhere. I teach them, I say, when you're going out in a supermarket, hold mommy. Even if a stranger says, would you like some chocolate? Drag your mom there. Ask them to give to your mom. So you're building their skills. Again, body safety and body honor. And so for 3 to 5-year-olds, there's not so much body honor for them, it's body safety. And so let me end with this. So for instance, you take your children to a party. Let's say you went for the party in someone's home. Let's say it's a 3-bedroom flat. Chances are that there's a guest toilet in the parlor. Chances are also that most of the party things are happening in the parlor and outside. It is important to teach children that the only toilet you use in people's houses, where there's a party, is the toilet in the parlor. That's where the activity is. That's where people can see you. To move into the room, move upstairs because you know the house, and go upstairs can be a window for abuse. Remember, abuse is not always only adults. Adults are abusing kids, but also kids on kids abuse exists. And especially when children think they will be in trouble, you would not for a long time. Remember what I said at the onset. When there's abuse, it can lead to trauma and it can alter a person's life significantly. So this conversation is how we can all ensure that we're raising a generation that is not abused, all right? And reducing the number of kids that have to struggle with mental health issues related to sexual abuse. So I've said a lot for 3 to 5-year-olds already. I'd like to see your comments. Let me know what you've heard so far. Let me know what you've heard so far. I hope you're getting value from this. I hope you're getting value from this. So I move very quickly to the 6 to 8 window. 6 to 8-year-olds, I layer above 3 to 5. Everything to 3 to 5 applies to them. But at this age, they've started entering, I call this 6 to 8 phase, their first opinion building stage. A little bit of body honor starts to come in for them, right? And so for them, I noticed one of the very first things I noticed with 6 to 8-year-olds is they start to make sense of relationships. So if your husband calls you, instead of saying that is calling you, they say your husband is calling you. Because they're trying to make sense of relationships. Now, with husbands, they start to think that so for girls, for example, so the boy sitting beside them could be a husband. The boy they did the play with could be their husband. They start to have those ideas. And with having those ideas, there can be room for sexual exploitation. I'm coming. Let me help you. Did you know that sometimes when children grow up in a home where parents are loving on each other, where they would kiss, they would hug, they can carry it and go and try it somewhere else? Normally, the window that they start to consider this or even step out boldly to do it is within 6 to 8. So for 6 to 8-year-olds, we start to tell them what it means to be married. We start to tell them about the journey. Just simple telling them how your husband traveled, you people went for introduction and traditional marriage and stuff like that. And then they start to ask you things like, oh, how did you know daddy was the one? How did you know mommy was the one? You start to drop gold. Puberty has not started yet. They are not arguing with you. They're not trying to air their opinion yet. That can be a beautiful opportunity to plant solid knowledge. I knew daddy was the one because you start to drop those things. So the moment you start to teach them about how you travel to marry, they start to realize that the boy sitting in their class is not their husband. Neither is the girl in their class their wife. But that doesn't stop. The 6 to 8 year olds talk a lot. That's the age where they go to class to ask questions. Abuse can come when children show up with wrong information and start to share it with each other. So one of the things I have a 6 to 8 year old. One of the things I told my daughters when they got to that window is, mommy is the person you come back to ask questions, to talk about anything. By mommy, I mean mommy and daddy now, right? So why did I say that? I am ready to answer the questions. I am available to answer their questions. I will not judge them by the questions they're asking. You see, 6 to 8 is the window before preteen and puberty starts to begin. So if I want them to talk to me in the middle of puberty, I lay the foundation of ask me any question when they're 6 to 8. So the atmosphere is clear enough for them to say, I mean, your daughters can wake up and say, Mom, I don't feel comfortable with this person. There's a way he looks at me. My daughters have done that several times. So they are so aware, then they have someone to air it to. It kind of strengthens their alertness, it strengthens their awareness. One time we were doing something somewhere, and some guy just came out and called one of my daughters, do you want to rest? You want to just come and sit in my office? And she turned and looked at him and said, no, thank you. When the guy left, she turned and looked at me and said, isn't it awkward that he's asking me to come and sit down alone with him? So it wasn't about the guy calling her, then she got up and she's going and I'm calling her back. Is that on her own, she's aware that I shouldn't be alone with you. That kind of thing. Neither should I and my sister, because alone with you does not mean that if it's with my sister, it's okay. It just means that if you're going to spend time with us, one of our parents should be there, one of our caregivers should be there. So 6 to 8 is the time where you create that atmosphere that they are coming back to you to ask questions. When they start coming back to you to ask questions, they go to school with answers. They don't go to school with questions. They're not going to take from school. They're trying to give in class. So if a child says something wrong, they can come and say, Mommy, do you know what this girl said? And they'll be able to answer, or they will ask you. And so they'll be accessing quality information. I must have shared this story during the last parent summit where a little boy was curious to know what the shape of a woman's vagina or vulva is, what it looks like. Because another child told him that men's penises are like pencils, women's vaginas are like palm kernel. And that young man went to school, started opening up women's clothes to look at it. Obviously, his mom will be livid, right? Any mom will be embarrassed by those kind of calls. But it got out of hand because he didn't have who to ask. Because if it was my son, he asked me, I'll tell him, look at my lips. Women's vaginas are like lips. It's just that it's done like this so that they can weep comes out from them. By the time I explain it like that, I'm his go-to person. He keeps coming back to me. And so when he gets the wrong information, Mommy, is it true that every time a man is erect, it means he's ready to have sex? I say, no, it's not true. Because. You know what I found out? Parenting is the highest trust that God can bestow on a man. He literally gives you another person's life to determine the end from the beginning. So if you build the right foundation and the right relationship, you become your children's go-to person. Not just so that you can say, my children can talk to me, so that you can provide them accurate information when accurate information is scarce, so that you can be a part of their support system. And so that takes me to the next age level, which is 9 to 12 years old. Many parents worry about saying something inappropriate, and I get them. The biggest inappropriate thing parents fear to talk about is what sex is. And what they mean by sex at the time is sex as intercourse. And so what do I say? 3 to 5 year olds should not know about intercourse as penis and vagina. If they ask you where babies come from at 3 to 5, it's normally not a biological question. They see the pregnancy, they just want to know where the babies came out from, which is clearly your vagina or by surgery. That's what your 3 to 5 year old wants to know. They don't think, the concept of intercourse in itself did not come pre-written on their blueprint. They don't know such a thing exists. And especially if they're growing up in home where there are standards, Children are not watching inappropriate things on phones, on TV, and stuff like that. It allows them to grow in an age appropriate way. So when they're asking you at 3 to 5, they're not thinking intercourse. When they're asking you at 6 to 8, they start to feel like, okay, now I know where the baby came out from. How did it get in there? It's usually not safe to tell them they came from God. They will go to school and another child will tell them something else, right? So what should we do? At 6 to 8, we tell them that there's a cell in a man and a cell in a woman. When they fuse together, they come together and stay in a woman's body for 9 months, it becomes a baby. What's the cell in a man called? The sperm. The cell in a woman, or the house in a woman where the sperm goes to, is the eggs and stays in the ovary and all of that sort. When a 6 to 8 asks you, how did it get in there? So God has a process in which married people, I like to use married people for context, in which married people can come together and this would happen, right? If my child asks me, explain further, because I'm talking to them regular about sex education. I've told my daughter, who will be turning 9 in September, that I'll tell you all about this when you turn 9. But I've explained the cell, I've explained, because I feel that it's not age appropriate. 6 to 8 year olds, their brain is already going wild about a lot of things. You tell them about a concept like that, they go to school and say, come, let's try and see how it will be. How will it be now? No. My personal standard is no, not before 8. But when a child turns 9, they need to know what sex as intercourse is. They need to know the process. Because between 9 to 11, when puberty has started happening, their body's changing, they're having crushes, all sort of things. Friends start to tell them myth. Myth like, you don't get an STD the first time you have sex, or you don't get pregnant the first time you have sex. And so I'm there to tell you that your body is not an inventory machine. This is how people get pregnant. This is what happens. If you do this and this happens, do you get the idea? So 9 to 11 need to know about the changes going on in their body and what sex is and so on and so forth. But I'm going to just focus on 9 to 11 with crushes. I've been in rooms where children said their mother said having a crush was a sin. Their father said having a crush was a sin. And I just smiled. I said, crush is not a sin. It's a biological reaction that comes with puberty. That having the crush is not the problem. It's what to do with it that matters. And so when our children start to have crushes, it is our responsibility to teach them that you will feel it, but you don't need to act on it. Yeah, feel it, but don't act on it. And the only way children will be able to do that is if you are available to talk to them about the crushes. Because if they talk to their friends get all excited, friends amplify the feeling. So the feeling that was to last a few days and pass, here they are. The feeling is elongated. Yeah, because crushes were designed to be temporary feelings. They feel it a couple of days, couple of weeks is over. But they've talked to a friend, the friend has told them, write a note to him. They've put themselves in the vulnerable position where the guy knows about it or the girl knows about it, and then they start to meet in the corner. I tell them at that point, you're vulnerable and you're going to do things that you know you shouldn't. But your hormonal reactions to this is going to make you betray yourself. So body honor has started coming in. So I tell them, right now, it's not about someone exploiting you necessarily. It's now about when you make decisions that put you in harm's way. So during the crushes, come and talk to me. And so when they come to talk to me, what do I do with the information? I start to teach. So my daughter says she has a crush. I say, tell me about him. What do you like about him? I want to hear. So she's saying, okay, he's like this, he's like that. I said, okay, what do teachers say about him? How does he treat other people? How does he treat boys? How does he treat girls? In that crush, there's now room to educate. You're not saying, look at these other things, look at these other things, look at these other things. Because essentially you're giving the building blocks for when relationship will kick in. So you're building it from when they don't necessarily are making those decisions. They're not under pressure to make boy decisions. You can't be telling a 21-year-old how to date, who not to date. They're already in the frenzy. But when you're talking about crushes and how to manage crushes, you're literally teaching a child self-control and discipline and accountability, because in coming to talk to you, they're accountable. By the time they move to 12 to 14 years, the conversation changes a little bit. There's still a little bit of the 9 to 11 conversations, but you start to teach them about what sources of information are credible, Why should you believe that poll? Why should you believe that social media celebrity? Why should that person's opinion count? Because you're trying to teach them that I'm not going to always be there. And when you're out there trying to be your own person, information is going to fly around. These are kind of the parameters for deciding whether you're going to go with the flow or not. And then finally, my sweet 15 to 17-year-olds, we start to teach them that choices have consequences. And the truth is that at that phase of their lives, you literally start to prepare them for adulthood, body boundaries, visionary thinking about themselves. So one of the things I teach girls that come to my bootcamp, for example, is that they shouldn't date until they're 21. I know with the prom culture and different things, people don't necessarily agree, but I tell them, don't date until you're 21. You're all fantasy up in your head. And science says your puberty brain will continue changing until you're 21. I say, so chances are that someone that looks really cool to you, best of the best of the best of the best, is not the one. You won't even feel good about them. So if you start dating, obviously you're fantasizing a lot. You start dating, you will give in to different things. You take unnecessary risks, which are not relevant for your journey. You don't need this problem. But again, if you're the support system, the children can start building. Like in my Body Smart Girl journal, I talk about how they start building their rule books. They start to build their rule books, dating rule books, fashion rule books. They start to build their own standard, defining what kind of young adults they want to be. And then I always throw in something for them. I don't know if you would use it, but I tell the girls that number one, boys don't always have as much support as girls do. And so what that means is that the average boy out there does not know how to treat a girl with honor. So the only way you can feel safe with a boy is if you're certain that he has a mentor. You're certain he has supervisory care over him. And how do you ascertain that? When a boy wants to take you out, by that time you're 21 and he wants to take you on a date, ask him to tell his mom and ask his mom to call your mom. That's what they did in the olden days. And you know what? It works because I read a story the other day of a mother-in-law that sends her clothes to the son's wife to wash it with the hand. She doesn't want it to be hand washed in the machine. She has to hand wash it. We see where families treat girls as crap, for example. And so imagine if we brought back that culture where a mother calls another mother and say, hello, ma'am, this is my name. Okay, so my son is so and so. He met your daughter a few days ago. They've been seeing in school and they think they want to go on a date. Saying that she gave my son the condition that you have to permit her to come and I have to be the one asking. And so I'm calling to say, blah, 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 blah. It reduces the risk of her going out with someone who can gang rape her. And then when that happens, there's still rules where they go on a date, how long they stay, how they come back. You get the idea? Sweetheart, you came in just on time. What are the questions coming? Because I'm just flying blind here.
Oh my God. Guys, please give me some fire in the comment section if you agree with me that this has been like fire back to back to back to back. Please give me some fire in the comment section. So this is mind-blowing, Irene. As always, very mind-blowing. And I think that, all the questions I had written down, I think that you answered them in the course of the conversation, because I wanted to ask for number one, I wanted to ask what's the right time for a child to date, because someone had asked that in the previous session and I wasn't able to respond to that. But I think that you addressed that while you were talking, right? So guys, if you have any question, please drop it in the comments so that we can take your questions. And please, as you're watching, don't forget to subscribe, right? You agree with me that this is not something that you can just download in one sitting. This is a conversation that you need to go back to and listen to it over and over, take the lessons. And please, Irene has a boot camp for children, right? Of different age. So for some of us who say things like, I don't know where to start, I don't know how to give this conversation, you can actually send your kids to Irene And what she does with that, beyond having that conversation with them, she makes them come back with questions for you, so you can now know how to proceed from where she has stopped. So she has a book. Kindly follow her on at Raising Girls on Instagram at raisinggirls.ng. And I also remember that I didn't mention Mr. Jeff's handle. His handle on Instagram is Jeff316, 16 as in words, right? Jeff316. I tagged him on my last post on
Yes, I made the
Instagram.
mistake.
Yeah, you can also
I
follow
used to do
him.
this.
Yeah, you can also follow him on Instagram, to get his own, to get what he shares. These are amazing coaches that we're bringing to you. These are knowledge, things that you pay for, but we're bringing it for free, right? So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share on all your social media handle with the hashtag PSA conversation. Don't forget to share with your families. You will agree with me that your friends and families need to hear these things, because you know what? If you're the only one learning in your circle, your child is still at risk. Right? So if
Yes.
you're the only one learning in your circle, your child is still at risk. If you have a group of friends, what I do is that when I learn something new, I share with my friends. I tell them, Irene is one of my inner circle, right? So we see something, we share it among ourselves, because our
Quickly,
children, you
quickly.
know because
Yeah.
our children mix up. So if you see this kind of conversations, share it with everybody in your community, with your family, with your friends. Let them be learning, because these are the people that your children will spend time with. They need to know and also raise their children well, so that they don't corrupt your own children. So again,
Yeah.
subscribe and follow us on our social media handle, right? And check out Irene's bootcamp. Yes, the bootcamp is online, right? So someone says, please, I missed the part where you talked about 1 to 5 year old. How do I talk to my 2-year-old about body safety? Yeah.
So first and foremost, you need to watch the replay. So there's no sex education for 1 to 2 year olds. You're their
Yeah,
police
yeah,
dog. What will you
yeah,
tell them? You're going everywhere with them. I always recommend that parents should choose crutches over leaving their children at home with a caregiver. That's
yeah,
my recommendation. You don't need to
yeah.
choose it, because at that age, communication is a bit. So for me, it's
Mm.
3 to 5 year olds, and I said quite a lot. So you need to watch the replay to see what I said about 3 to 5. Their
All right. So
conversation is a bit expanded.
all right. Yes. Thank you. So, Grace Young says, "Good evening, ma. Please, how do I get the books you talked about? I have a daughter who will be 10 in July, a son who will be 8 and 6 in July and September, respectively." Grace, just follow Irene on raisinggirls.ng. I think all the details are there. You will see more of her work. If you just
Yes.
follow her, you see
And
more of
sister,
her
we are
work.
having a physical. We're having a
Hello?
physical boot camp in Lagos and Abuja this year.
Oh, amazing. So it's coming. There's a virtual boot camp, there's physical boot camp. Just follow Irene. So that's the simple way to be updated with information on the boot camp and on her books and on her resources. So just follow Irene. So someone said, Oluwakemi is saying, is that age for dating safe for boys too? I have lots of boys in my space. So what would be the answer to that? Hello? Hi. Is it my network or Irene here?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me
I
now?
was trying to switch. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so someone says, is that age for dating safe for boys too? I have a lot of boys in my space. So someone is asking if the
No,
the date. Yeah, okay. Okay.
for boys is like 24. Girls, you know that girls develop faster than boys. So
Yeah.
a 21-year-old boy is still a baby. He may
Yeah.
have all the muscles, but he's not emotionally ready for most of the things that a 21-year-old girl is. So if someone asks me off the top of my head, I would say 24.
All right. So if you
But I
ask
haven't
me,
thought about it very critically.
I'll say 25 because
Yeah,
brain science wise,
yes, brain science wise,
your logical thinking isn't fully developed until
developed
25.
until you're 25.
So
Yes,
I would
yes,
even
really.
say 25,
20,
right? I would say
yeah.
25. They
But we
can
don't
have
want people to
friends.
wait for us outside.
Yeah, so when we say dating, we're not saying they can't have friends, right? That are
Yes.
girls or that are boys
Yes.
whom they get to meet under your supervision.
Son, of
Yeah,
course.
and all of that. Okay, so but when it comes to dating where they are going to be exclusive and all of that, I think that
Exclusive,
25
yeah.
is the ideal, because brain science wise their brain isn't really fully developed before the age of 25.
I
Yeah.
have a reason why I can't say 25.
Okay.
I got married before I was 25. You know
See,
that
see, so and now, so
some of
the
us,
thing
it's
is,
a miracle.
of course, I was coming to that, because you should
Yes.
also think about the struggles that you faced, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
it
Yes.
worked, but it wasn't as that. It worked because you were even with a good man, right? So
Yes.
imagine
Oh, actually,
if you
absolutely, absolutely,
do you understand?
absolutely.
Imagine
Yes.
if you
Yes.
weren't with a good man. So you would have struggled, you would have lost yourself and made a lot of mistakes, right? So,
Yes,
we have to
absolutely.
put
So
everything in
yes, find
perspective.
yourself first. Yes, find the
Yeah.
girl needs to the kids need to find themselves wholesomely before they
Mm-hmm.
start to tangle. When we're growing up, they say when you come, you complete each other. It took us growing
Yeah.
up to know that you don't complete nobody. You come
Nobody.
complete. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
truth. So these kids have to be wholesomely developed before we can explore all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
truly.
So someone says, can boys attend the boot camps as well? Guys, we need to
So
run for
no,
the
no, no.
next
Let me tell
session.
you about Ebuka. There's a coach on Instagram called Ebuka Boys Coach. He also
Boys
holds
coach.
boot
Yeah.
camps for boys. So go look
Uh,
for Ebuka Boys Coach. He's the plug. I don't want to see boys in my boot camp.
Yeah. All right, guys. So this has been an amazing session, and I'm sure that if we keep at it, we're going to keep talking and talking and talking. But please catch the replay, share it with your family and friends, and please go have those conversations with your kids. We don't want our children to be those ones who will be prone to abuse, prone to molestation.
Yes.
We want to raise children who are aware, who are empowered, and who can stand against this predators, right, and expose
Yes.
them and have those
Yes.
conversations and have us as their trusted ally, right,
Yes.
every point in time, right? So thank you for joining. Please don't go anywhere. We are diving right into the next conversation, and that's specifically for anybody who is parenting as a single parent. But I don't think that it should be only for single parent. If you have an uninvolved spouse, you can pick something from that session. This that particular session is going to be a very vulnerable conversation, vulnerable conversation, that you want to be part of. If you know any single parent who is struggling, who is overwhelmed, who is wondering if they're even doing things right, who is wondering if they will raise wholesome kids as a single parent, then you want to invite them for that conversation. And it was diving right in by 7 p.m. or later 7:05, right? So once again, we want to appreciate the Bunker for sponsoring this conversation. Please, guys, if you're in Abuja and you're looking for a co-working space where to have your meetings, where to have your small events, where to meet with your clients, please look out for the Bunker Abuja. That's your personal space, everything you need in one space. Thank you so much. Let's move to the next session. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Irene. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. Bye-bye. Guys, see you. Don't go anywhere.